on that note.
Yep, that's right. Hey guys, this is Lavetta.
This is Miriam.
And this is Notorious Women Podcast, a comedy podcast about some of history's most notorious women.
That's right. Yes.
How you doing, my friend?
I'm hanging in there. I'm good. I'm good. But I'm tired.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
But it's good. It's good.
Yeah, I need a vacation for like a month, which is not going to happen.
No.
I do. So, but I am excited about this week, like every week, because I think we've been getting some really good feedback on our episodes of season 3.
Okay.
That's right. A lot of people love it. A lot of foolishness. The great thing about what we do on this podcast is that we will never run out of notorious women.
No, it's very, very true. Like it's how do you choose? How do you pick out of so many? Like it's too many, but that's okay.
It's too many.
It's too many, and it's too many in a good way,
Yeah.
Or a bad way, depending on the woman. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the thing is that because of like some women are actually quote unquote bad and some are good, but are notorious because people hate them for being good.
Right.
So that's the thing, right?
It's why it works. It's why the word works.
Yes.
All hail the bitches,
All hail the bitches. And at some point we're going to have to do Hillary Clinton. You know that, right?
I do know that. Is today the day?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying like at some point, like either I or you have to pull that trigger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I actually thought about that the other day.
Yeah.
Like, she's looking at me like, you want to do it?
No, I feel like what I love about that though is that like there's some like, there's like, the Belle Gunnesses of the world. There's Lizzie Borden. Like those are the obvious ones that like everyone's done. Like, we obviously put our own spin on it, but I also like to cover women that people don't automatically think of or like helping people discover new women,
Yes. So. That's, you know me. I love a 16th century woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So and I like a Victorian murderess. That's my sweet spot. Yes, it does. But I think we should get started. And I believe, let me just double check. I have
no idea.
You are first, my friend. Yes, This week you are first. So who's your notorious woman for me this week?
Okay, so I'm like a little bit timely. This week, I'm going to talk about Fran Drescher.
The nanny.
My Jewish sister from a very different mister. She's very fascinating. As you know, like if you don't, she is the head of SAG-AFTRA. She's the president. And so we've, seen a lot of, videos of her talking and fighting for, and I thought she would be an interesting person to like, from my point of view, the nanny is now the president of SAG-AFTRA. That was my point of view. So I was like,
that's a good POV, I think.
That's a good kind one. Of. I was like, get it, Fran, fine. But it turns out that maybe there's like more to the story. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's start. So listen, I'm pretty sure we're related. We just don't know it. She was born in Queens, New York. Like
of
half
course
my
you're related.
family, obviously.
Yes, obviously. Like second or third cousin.
Yeah. Third cousin twice removed, but probably I'm right about that, honestly.
Probably.
Listen, she doesn't call, she doesn't write, it's fine. I forgive you, Fran. All right. So she was born September 30th, 1957. Let me just say that she's a Libra, and so am I. So we're the same. Her mother was named Sylvia, who was a bridal consultant. Her father's named Morty, who was a naval systems analyst. Okay, if you watch The Nanny, those are the names of her parents in the show. Love it so hard.
I love
right?
That.
Oh, Sylvia. I can't really do it. So she's Jewish. If you didn't know, but like we all knew. And so her maternal great grandmother, did you watch The Nanny?
Of course I'd watch The Nanny.
Okay. Do you remember Yetta? What? Franny. She was this tiny woman.
Yes.
Her grandma was called Yetta too. Okay.
Oh, I love it.
So her Yetta was born in Romania and had immigrated to the United States. Her father's family came from Poland. My grandfather's family also came from Poland. Again, we're the same. She was a first runner-up for Miss New York Teenager in 1973. And she went to Hillcrest High School in Jamaica, Queens, where she met her future husband, Peter Mark Jacobson. She also met Ray Romano, right?
No.
Yes. They went to high school together.
Cool.
I know, right? So she married Peter in 1978 when she was 21. So before that, they both went to Queens College, City University of New York. By the way, side note, my aunt worked for Queens College for many years. So, and like when I was a kid, like I remember going on the campus with her. So it's kind of like I went to college with Fran Drescher.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
I agree.
I appreciate your understanding.
Yes.
Thanks for yes-anding that. I really appreciate it. Okay. So she dropped out in the first year because, quote, all the acting classes were filled, end quote. But then she went on to cosmetology school. Okay.
Actor, cosmetology. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Same thing.
I mean, I want to play for a living,
And then you play in people's hair or on their faces.
Yeah, exactly.
So, make people beautiful.
Pretty sure you and I couldn't relate to that more.
No, I never want to touch anybody's hair. No. Hard pass.
Okay. I like hair. I think it's fun. Okay. All right. I'm not going to go. You can't touch my hair. Okay. Put it that way. No. Yeah. Go to the professionals for that. Fine.
Exactly.
Okay. So her first break was a small role as dancer Connie in the movie Saturday Night Fever in 1977. And she had, I think it was a very famous line. I'm not even sure, but it sounds like it should be. She said, quote, "So are you as good in bed as you are on the dance floor?" To John Travolta. Okay. Like,
I mean,
that's
that movie,
cool.
Notwithstanding that movie being very problematic.
Yes.
Have you seen it recently?
Not recently.
I saw it recently. I forgot. And there's a full on like rape scene, like gang rape scene, like towards the end. And they treat it in the car. And they treat it like it's not a big deal. You're just like,
I'm remembering this now.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep. Oh my God.
Yep.
No, I maybe blacked it out. I don't know.
I think I did too, because then I watched it like during the pandemic again. And I was like, what the wow. I only remember the end. I'm going to give it away. Where I remember being young and being like, I don't understand. John Travolta wasn't nearly as good as that black man who's amazing. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And they're like,
make any sense, but.
Right. Yes, Miriam. Yeah, oh, honey. Yeah. I was like, oh.
But that's a good line.
That's a good line. I
remember that lady.
Yeah.
So.
So a year later, she began to gain attention in a bunch of different films. I'll go through some of them. So American Hot Wax, Summer of Fear. She did a dramatic role in the movie Ragtime. And then she started doing character actor parts in Gorp, Hollywood Nights, Dr. Detroit, The Big Picture, UHF, Cadillac Man. This is Spinal Tap, which is awesome.
No, she's in This is Spinal Tap.
She's in This is Spinal, which means I have to watch it again. Obviously.
Yeah, any excuse to watch This is Spinal Tap.
So
any
good.
excuse. So
I remember watching that as a really little kid and being like, so are they going on tour?
Because it's done so real. You think it's real at first. You're like, but they're kind of ridiculous.
I mean, when you're a kid, everyone's ridiculous, right? Yes. So you're just like, okay, I'd go see them.
So good.
She also guest starred in Who's the Boss, Night Court, and Alf. No idea. I love it.
Of course she did, because that's very 80s.
So 80s. Like,
so 80s. All
the
of that.
best of the 80s. Did you watch the new Night Court? Did I ask you this already?
You have, and I haven't watched it yet. I haven't gotten to it. I heard it's really good.
Hurry up. I'm waiting.
But you know,
it's
the best of that bunch is Alf. Alf is number one forever.
Okay.
Even though he was always trying to eat cats.
Okay.
Alf is number one.
Listen, Lavetta, yes, and. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to break your heart right now. I'm not going to do it.
I love it. I appreciate that.
You got it. You got it, girl.
That's what friends are for.
That's right. That's right. Who else is going to agree to that? Anyways. All right. So let's get serious for a moment. So I don't know if people know this. A very traumatic thing happened to her in 1985 where she was attacked in her home with her husband at gunpoint. They were broke into her apartment. Trigger warning. You can fast forward a bit if you'd like. She was raped along with her friend who was there too. Her husband was beaten and he was made to witness. Awful, awful, awful. So that took her many years to recover and many years even that to tell the story, which I think the fact that she even told the story once is incredibly brave.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she talked to Larry King about it and said that essentially she said that she found ways to turn bad things into something positive. And it's terrible, but the good news is her rapist did in fact go back to prison. He was on parole and stayed there. So that did happen. And then in 1993, we're going back to the good stuff. She created The Nanny with her husband. Mm-hmm. It aired on CBS from 1993 to 1999. She became an instant star. I love her so much. It's so good. I mean, you guys know The Nanny. If you don't, I think it holds up. I really do. Yeah, I think it's still.
She's delightful.
She's delightful, and it was really neat as a kid. Like, representation matters. Like, yeah, we are Jews are a little loud. I'm not gonna lie, it's true. So it was neat to see that, the sort of exaggerated version of all of my cousins,
And that laugh. She had that signature laugh.
I know. Oh my God. Honestly, I forgot about the laugh. Oh my God. And you do it really well. Weird
because she's really gorgeous. She's really, really beautiful.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
And her character's very down to earth, working class. And then she has that laugh, but because it's her, she's so delightful. It's great.
I love that she played a woman who was very much herself. In the entire series, she never changed who she was. This is not Pygmalion or whatever the musical version of that. I totally forgot. I am that
My
much
Fair Lady,
theater.
Pygmalion.
Thank you.
Same thing.
Right. It's the same thing. But I couldn't really sing in high school, and so I liked Pygmalion better. And so it's great. She stayed herself. Anyways, good lessons. So also fun fact. So she went to high school with Ray Romano. There is an episode of the show where the character Ray Barone from Everybody Loves Raymond meets her at their 20th high school reunion in the show The Nanny. So there's an episode where there's the 20th high school reunion and she goes and Ray Barone is also there. And I love it so much.
That's so cool.
Right.
Love it.
So she also did more movies in the 90s. She was in Jack, Beautician, and the Beast. I remember that. And a Woody Allen movie in 2000 called Picking Up the Pieces. So in 1996, her and her husband separated, and then they divorced in 1999. They never had any children. He basically came out of the closet. He is a gay man. But they basically stayed best friends, which I think is the most beautiful Like,
I love that.
right? It's the most beautiful love story. Like,
oh, love it.
You know?
Yes.
And they're business partners still. They still do work together. So in June of 2000, after 2 years of symptoms and misdiagnoses, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer. She had to have a radical hysterectomy and was declared cancer-free after that. So she wrote about these experiences in her book, Cancer Schmancer. I remember that book. And she wrote it to bring awareness to the early warning signs of cancer, which I love that. Like she does the work, you know. In June of 2007, she announced the national launch of the Cancer Schmancer movement, which was a nonprofit organization dedicated to ensuring that all women's cancers be diagnosed while in stage 1, which is the most curable stage. She says that her goal is to live in a time when women's mortality rates drop as their healthcare improves and early cancer detection increases. So these efforts, as an outspoken healthcare advocate in Washington, D.C., helped get unanimous passage for a bill, H.R. 1245, which is also known as Joanna's Law. And she's acknowledged in the congressional record for this. So I'm not exactly sure the specifics of it, but it to promote women's health.
I love that.
And in September 2008, she was appointed as a U.S. diplomat by the administration's Assistant Secretary of State, Goli Ameri. Her official title was Public Diplomacy Envoy for Women's Health Issues. So she traveled the world. She supported U.S. public diplomacy efforts, including working with health organizations and women's group to raise awareness of women's health issues, cancer awareness and detection, and patient empowerment and advocacy. Her first trip was in late September. She stopped in Romania, Hungary, Serbia, and Poland. So in 2008, she supported Hillary Clinton for the Democratic Party presidential nomination. And she said that she considered a run for the United States Senate in 2008 to succeed Hillary Clinton, but she ultimately decided against it.
Really?
I didn't know any of this.
I didn't either.
She's living like a whole life, like nobody knew. She was also in the 2000s. She was still doing television. She played in there was a show called Living with Fran, where, did you know this? There were 2 seasons of it. She played a middle-aged mother of 2, and Charles Shaughnessy, who played her, I think Maxwell was the father's name. Mm-hmm. He played her like deadbeat ex-husband in that show, which I find hilarious. She was in Law and Order, Entourage, The Simpsons. She tried to do the Fran Drescher talk show, like TAWK. Talk show. The Fran Drescher talk show. Okay. Yeah. No one needs to hear that again. And then in 2011, she created Happily Divorced, which was based on her life of marrying a man who turned out to be gay. And it was a good show, and it had 34 episodes. It was like 1 season and then like a second season, and then they added on to the second season. Okay. So it did okay. It did better. I don't want to say like it was 2 seasons, because it was like 3 seasons.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like I Love Lucy, and then Lucille Ball show. It's like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's nothing as like iconic as I Love Lucy, but
still,
you still love Lucy. So
like
we love Fran. We still love Fran.
Lucy. Exactly. She was on Broadway as well. Did you know this?
I did not know this.
I'm getting very New York talking about Fran Drescher. I don't know why. What's happening to my voice? She played the fairy godmother in Cinderella.
Oh,
She did a 10-week stint on Broadway, and then she did, I think, another 10-week stint in LA during the national tour. She was in the play Love, Loss, and What I Wore by Nora Ephron, and she was also in Camelot. Both were off Broadway. It's like the kind of off Broadway that actors can only dream about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. When we say off Broadway is a big fucking deal. So just know
big
that.
Fucking deal. I once got an audition for an off Broadway show, and that was like enough to like fill me with joy that I got an audition for it. I did not get it. Just if anyone's wondering.
Was it a straight play or a musical?
It was definitely straight play. Musicals and I love musicals. I do. And I love to sing and dance, but I didn't really train intensely in that. And so there's only so many levels up you can
skill
go with
to it. Yeah.
It's definitely a skill.
Musical theater. Oh yeah.
So speaking of musical theater, in 2020, they announced the musical of The Nanny in the works.
No.
Rachel Bloom is one of the writers, and I'm so ready.
I'm ready for that.
I'm ready for that. I'm flying to New York. Or maybe they should run it in La Jolla and I can go see it. I'm just throwing it out there.
La Jolla.
It's the
same thing. It's the same. Yeah.
La Jolla Playhouse, they have some, pre-Broadway runs.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not shading La Jolla.
And they asked if she'd play the role of the nanny. She said they'd have to rename it The Granny.
Love her.
So in 2021, we're all waiting for this, she began her campaign to become president of the SAG-AFTRA union. She cited both her entertainment and her political background. Her candidacy came from the, quote, Unite for Strength faction, and she ran against actor Matthew Modine. On September 2nd, 2021, SAG-AFTRA announced that Drescher had won the election. On July 13th, 2023, we probably already know this, after SAG-AFTRA members overwhelmingly voted to authorize a strike action a week prior, she announced that the SAG-AFTRA strike was to begin at midnight the following day, running alongside the concurrent WGA strike that began like around 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, something like that.
Yeah. At this point, when this comes out, it'd be about
2.5 months. And so, like, when this comes out, I don't know what's actually going to be in.
Hopefully, there's a resolution. I mean, hopefully, we're close to a resolution.
I mean, she's like, if you Google her, she's fighting the good fight. I will say.
Oh yeah.
Some of the things that they are trying to implement are kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
So I feel good a little that they're doing this as opposed to agreeing to, some of this. I mean, the AI crap, like, seriously, no, you cannot take my picture and then use it for eternity. No, thank you.
No, unless you're going to pay my ass for eternity.
You want to pay me $200,000? Then I will, let's go. Let's go.
Because people don't understand, like that's what residuals are for the continued use of a performer's likeness. Like, that's why we get residuals. Like, let's say commercials. That's the easiest one for people to understand. You do a commercial, you get paid that session fee, but you make most of your money from the residuals.
Yep.
That also then help you qualify for health insurance and pension and all that other stuff. So that is what residuals are for the use of my likeness, my image, my voice continuously every time you show it. So if you're going to just like take one thing and use it in perpetuity and not pay me, no.
Yeah,
we
that's
got
insane. Like, that's the thing I think is so important to realize. Like, I think there's a slight misconception that people in SAG are all very, very rich. And there's a large percentage of people who are, but that large percentage is about 14%. So that's a lot.
Even if that amount, like.
If that. But it's something like 86% of people in the union make under $27,000 a year. Like, they don't meet their health insurance requirements.
Yeah, even less than that. And I think people don't understand that residuals is the way that actors make a living. So like it's not the session fee or like the, and I think people have a misconception like, oh, they're making Friends money or like,
like
Seinfeld money. And it's like, no, but those people still get a residual, even though Seinfeld's been on for 20 years now. Like, they're probably getting checks.
They earned it. I mean, the thing is, most actors you see in every sort of media does not make a lot of money.
Right.
Most of the actors you see on the screens, right? Like you watch a Marvel movie and you're like, those people, they got a Marvel movie. Yeah, they're still struggling.
Yeah. Unless they're making the money for that movie, unless you're Thor, right. Your name, and then you're making money from that and you're making money from endorsements.
Exactly. But they also they work really hard. It's a hustle game.
It's a hustle game. And keep in mind, it's like the NBA or the NFL. Yeah, the players are making a lot of money, but you know who really making money? The owners. The
owners. Yeah, they are. And you could be dropped from a team. They could pull your contract. Like you don't have a lot of, and also if you in that regard, you only have a certain period of time in which to play. Right. Yep. And then you have another 40, 50 years to live. And you can't make that kind of money. So, and it's also you give and you take. Yeah. But why are we in a society that does not honor artists? I don't understand. We're everything we do. Like, look at quarantine. What did we do in quarantine? We watched those artists. That's all we could do. Without that, we would have gone insane. We'd have lost our minds.
We would have gone insane. And actually, I just wanted to. So they said the average yearly income for an actor in SAG is $40,000 a year, which is below 30% below. Is $40,000 a year, which is 30% below the national average.
Yeah, it's
so that's
low.
why they're striking for residuals and things like that. So and just keep that in.
They
mind.
Earn it. They fight for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyways, Fran is fighting the good fight.
We love
and
her.
Watch her. I saw her thing. Maybe I'll post it on Instagram. I might have already done it. I'll do it again. Her speech about that. I have a lot of hope for this strike because I hope it lends itself to all the corporations who are trying to nickel and dime their lowest workers while the CEOs are making literal billions.
Yeah.
It's we got to stop the Gilded Age from, we're already in it. Let's stop it,
Yeah. And just so you guys know, to reiterate, in the Gilded Age, they did not pay income taxes.
Nope.
That's why they could build mansions of literal gold.
Unbelievably unnecessary. Gold. Okay, while other people are starving. No,
mansions that take up the size of a New York City block.
Listen, make your damn money and pay your damn taxes, and I don't care. Yeah. But you want to play with those taxes and you want to keep making money while you step on everyone else? No, I care. Then I will care.
This is America. We gotta pay. Well, that is, of course, we love Fran Drescher. Some of that stuff I knew, some of it I didn't. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was a nice inspirational story that gets us ready for not such a. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to need your help here because I'm actually. So my notorious woman this week is a woman by the name of Sister Ping.
Sister Ping. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now some of the major sources that I used for the story today comes from Chinatown Gang Wars, which is like a YouTube channel about these different stories, gang stories. The Underworld podcast.
Okay.
And a book by Patrick Radden Keefe. Patrick Radden Keefe. He wrote a book in 2009 called The Snakehead. So those are my main sources, but there are a lot of other sources, but those are 3 main sources. So Sister Ping. Now let's start this story on June 6, 1993.
Okay.
In Queens, New York.
I had a feeling.
Far Rockaway, I should say.
Okay. That's Queens.
A cargo ship, I always get that confused, but June 6, 1993, where a cargo ship by the name of the Golden Venture has run aground.
Okay.
So there's chaos. There's all this stuff. People are confused. What is going on? And when the dust settles, what they find are 286 human beings on board. And they find out that they're being transported illegally into the country.
Okay.
Right? Like I said, there's all this chaos. Some of the passengers were jumping off, trying to swim away because they were terrified. They ran aground.
Yeah.
And then the officials, everybody's just trying to figure out what's going on. Is it like an accident? What is going on?
Right.
So it was, like I said, it was chaos. And some of the people were jumping off of the ship into the cold water, probably trying to escape, but probably just like because they think maybe the ship is going to go down. So they're terrified. But once the dust settles and the water settles, authorities identify the ship's basically leader, like criminal leader that's sort of running everything on this voyage by the name of Guo Liang Chi. And they begin to question Chi. And Chi is like, I don't know nothing about nothing. Because he's like, I'm true. I'm a true OG. And then they're like, this is how much time you're facing. He was like, oh, see, what had happened was he started singing like a motherfucking bird. Okay. She is like, say less. I have a name for you. So he fingers a woman by the name of Sister Ping. And he tells them that she's a Chinese businesswoman and she is responsible for all of this.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So now, Sister Ping was born Ching Chu Ping or Ah Ping on January 9th, 1949 to Ching Chai Lung, a peasant farmer from a village in the Fujian province in China.
Okay.
Her mother, I couldn't find her mother's name, which,
Well, that's because she's a woman.
Misogyny, I know. And it could be that they were trying to protect her for the reasons that were clear.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
So her mother was from the neighboring village. Now, when Sister Ping was about 10 months old, the People's Republic of China was formed.
Oh, okay.
Because again, it's 49.
Right.
So with the Mao Cultural Revolution as a backdrop, life was very dangerous and difficult.
Okay. Yeah.
In search of a better life and a way to help his family, her father, Ching Chai Lung, was smuggled into the U.S. in the 1960s when he was a teenager. So he entered the U.S. like working, or onto a ship working, and then once he got here, he stayed. That's usually how a lot of that happens.
Yes.
And he stayed, and then he would work and then send money back home.
Yeah.
He actually stayed until 1977. So
wow,
he stayed.
That's a long time.
And he left when she was like a teenager, like around 13, 14. So he stayed a long time. At which point he was just deported because it was discovered that he was there illegally, and so he was deported. So he came back to their village in the Fujian district. In China. And once he settled in, he began, he loved the U.S. So he always talked about how much he loved it, how much progress is there. And again, this is Mao China, not today's China.
Right.
So he actually began smuggling people from his town, his village, out of China into the U.S. So he got into the smuggling business. Now, side note, people who are smuggled, because these are human beings, but people who are smuggled are, in this sort of context, are called snakes. And people who smuggle them, the smugglers, are called snakeheads. So the head of the so you know how I think with South America they're called coyotes or coyotes.
Yes.
In this context, they're called snakeheads. So
I had no idea. I'm learning a lot. Wow.
Me too. This is great. So now growing up, Sister Ping worked on the family farm and developed a sense of hard work. So she was just like very like, gotta work hard, communist, ideology. Like I work hard, it'll work. But she also developed an even harder like shell and sense of like just harshness. So as a child, she became a leader of a local Red Guard. Now, basically the Red Guards were these like different groups of like young, very young, like teenage Chinese kids going around harassing people, who they thought were disloyal to the party or who had who had the mildest offense of wearing Western clothing or being a teacher.
So it's kind of like a party gang.
Yeah, exactly. And these are like teenagers. So immature and they started harassing people and they actually even began killing people because they got drunk. Yeah, there's a whole like controversy. That's a whole side story. So in fact, these Red Guards, their activities were so heinous that after a while, they became a nuisance to the Communist Party, and the Communist Party eventually disavowed their antics.
Okay.
But during this time when they were running rampant throughout the countrysides and in small villages, up to 2 million people were killed.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
What?
Like that, the Red Guard. Yeah. These and it was committed by teenagers, like actual teenagers.
Oh, damn. We do not talk about this because I did not know this. Okay.
So
well, now we do. Now we know.
Now we do. And so she was the leader in her local area of the Red Guards. Like, I mean, I don't know if she killed nobody, but I can see her being like smacking people around, like, "Bitch, what did I say?" No, I'm just saying. I don't know if she said that. I'm just.
Like verbatim, at least.
That sounds funny.
Yeah.
Now, in 1969, when she was about 20, she married a man by the name of Chung Yet Tan, and they moved to Hong Kong, where the Fujianese were considered like a lower class. Basically, they were considered like country bumpkins.
Okay.
And the Cantonese were treated better as more cosmopolitan, a higher class. So she experienced for the first time like social discrimination.
Okay.
On a vast scale. So, but she, she's a hard worker. So, eventually the couple would have about 4 children. They would have 4 children. So at this time, she had already had her daughter, probably had another kid. So they had mouths to feed. And these are basically peasant farmers.
Right.
They aren't like educated people. So in their mind, it's like, we can only get ahead if we work hard. So she worked tirelessly. She was always a hard worker to make a living. And by, about 10 years later, by 1979, at age 30, she had opened up a garment factory just across, from Hong Kong on the mainland.
Oh, okay.
So, she's at least making a living. It's not like
she's got a business.
Yeah. Now, by this time, her father was back, like I said already, and he had already began smuggling people and doing his side hustle of being a snakehead. It's just, sort of low level, like a couple people here and there. And again, he continued to talk about how wonderful America was and how about all the opportunities. So she was thinking, she got a little bit intrigued. So she's like, I want to see it for myself. Okay. So she sets out to get there herself, and through her contacts, because again, she's a local businesswoman, through her contacts, she managed to get a job as a nanny with a family in New York City, but they traveled through Canada and they settled in Manhattan in 1981.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So she's 31 or 32. And
so
now once she settles in, she just leaves.
Okay.
Well, because her father's like, there's all this possibility. There's all this like, opportunity. So she comes in under the guise of being a nanny, but she settles in and she opens up it's kind of like a pop-up store by the name. If you've ever been to like Chinatown, you have like these small, like sort of like, they have the gates. They're basically like, oh God, what do you call them? Like, kind of like a kiosk. Like, it can be like small, kind of kiosk that you bring the shutters down. So
Like
it's kind of like that kind
yeah.
of thing. Yeah. If you've ever been to probably any Chinatown, but especially
Like a
Chinatown in Lower
mini
Manhattan.
store. A mini
Yeah.
store. Yeah.
So she opened up a store by the name of Takshun Variety Store. It is sold like clothing and simple goods, kind of like a dollar store, it sounds like.
Okay.
That caters specifically for her people, the Fujianese community.
Okay, question. Is she nannying anybody?
It was hard to tell. I feel like she hustled both for a while, and then once she started making money in her store, because she also had a third job. She was working in a restaurant. It's hard to figure out if she was working in the restaurant and then she eventually bought it, or maybe it was like, again, another pop-up shop, like where she started a restaurant that was downstairs from the store that also sold like Fujianese cuisine, such as oyster cakes and fishball soup.
Okay, that sounds good.
So, and again, the whole Cantonese versus Fujianese versus other people, like it's the same thing. Again, the Fujianese, I think, are considered, and listeners, please tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they were kind of considered like country bumpkins, like they're in the rural part, like not as sophisticated as people from like Hong Kong or the Cantonese.
I've literally never heard the term Fujianese before. So
yeah, so I think that's the sense I get, that it's kind of like that kind of thing.
Let's bring it back into our verbiage. Yeah.
So she worked long hours in the store, and then she would go downstairs to the restaurant, like I said, and would sell these things. So she was rising and grinding, basically. She was a hard fucking worker. And according to most people, she had a very unassuming appearance, and she could be easily mistaken for like a recent arrival.
Okay.
Like, because she wore probably simple clothes. You know, she's probably stacking her paper, as they say, stacking her money, and she got mouths to feed. You know, she's here. She's like, I didn't come here to fuck around. I came here to get this money. So even though Sister Ping may have looked lower class, she's like, bitches, I'm trying to upgrade my life. Okay. So, but this is an interesting. So I just want to take a moment here. Like, we talk about the American dream. And I know a lot of recent immigrants have this and they buy into it. And to a certain extent, it is somewhat true. But what is not true is that working hard is not enough to succeed.
I mean, I come from people who learned that the very hard way. You know, a lot of times it becomes generational. You work harder than anyone who comes from privilege, like, ever. And you just do it because you're hoping your kids, or at least your grandkids, will have hope.
Yeah, so they don't have to work as hard as you, and they can concentrate on school, or they can da-da-da. So but this is a woman that doesn't have a lot of education. She doesn't mean she's not smart. Obviously, she's smarter than most people.
Yeah, she's very smart.
But she's in a new country. She probably doesn't speak the language that well yet. But she's rising and grinding. She got like 3, 4, 5 jobs, 5 hustles, but it's still not enough because America is expensive, right?
Listen, and America in the 80s will really fuck you up, you know? Like,
so she was like, how can I make some more money? Because this ain't cutting it. So in the early 1980s, she got this idea to begin flying, to get into the snakehead business. So she flew in a few snakes customers on commercial airlines.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And so like it was a lot of money, but she was making on average about $35,000 per person.
Holy shit.
Which is $74,000 in today's money.
That is a lot of money. Holy shit.
And it's because, keep in mind, so she's doing it a lot, mostly from people, she's helping people from her area in China to also, she has the contacts, she understands how to maneuver, she understands who to, you go here. And Chinatown, the history of Chinatowns in America is very, very fascinating. But they have like this network where, this is where you go to get a job. This is a labor pool. This is where you go and get a place to live, and like, because they had to, because of racism. So, and anti-Chinese sentiments, especially, or anti-Asian sentiments. So So, but she's already connected. So they're like, well, if I go there, I'll be safe. She'll hook me up. And it was small at first. Like it was a couple of people and she would actually just fly them on the plane. Right. Again, she made about,
so how did she do that? Like, I don't even know.
It's kind of like what her father did. Like you come here, you say you have a job and then you just stay. Because she's not offering them a green card. She's just offering them a way to get here. So they're not like, it's better than if they just got on a plane themselves. So she would bring them here and then she would hook them up with a job. So they didn't have to pay it all at once. And then they would pay her. It's basically labor, human trafficking.
That's what that is. Yes.
Yeah. Because obviously they don't have $74,000.
No, I wondered about that.
Yeah. So oftentimes a family would put down about 5 to 10%.
Okay.
For them to get her to agree to be a customer. And then she takes care of the plane tickets. She takes care of the identification. She takes care of all of that stuff. Right.
Okay.
And then gets them here and is like, go here and work and then pay me every week. Right. So, yeah. So needless to say, even though it wasn't a lot of people at the time, she was making money. She went from because I'm sure even having a small like store and a restaurant, she was not making that kind of money. And this is per person.
This is how you become a modern day feudal lord. That's what she was.
So even if she did 10 people, that's $740,000.
Wow, that's not a small amount of money.
Yeah. So
damn.
Now this is the early 80s in New York City. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of foolishness going on. Crooked cops, crime, gangs, all of it. The perfect environment to start some foolishness of your own. So
no one's looking. They're busy.
So she started doing this in the early 80s and she was living the high life. She upgraded. She was doing what? She was like, got this. But in 1989, and she started working for, it's so funny because one of the videos I watched was this guy named Big Head. He was a former gang member. He's so funny.
Oh shit.
And he talked about the whole Cantonese versus Fujianese. He's Cantonese. And he was just saying how like this is how he got to know her because basically he was sort of like what do they call it? They call him he was like a dailo. A dailo is like the head of like a local gang, like runs a crew.
Okay.
So they basically are like, it'd be a shame if something, went wrong with your restaurant.
Oh.
So that's how she met him because he basically, and just keep in mind that these people were glad to pay because they're like, this is how I'm going to do business because this is how you do business in other parts of the world as well.
It's like a tax.
So it's a tax. Exactly. So, because they're the mob. It's a Chinese mob.
Yeah,
but
it is what it is.
So she said that she came to him in the early 80s and he was like, nah, I don't really do that kind of stuff. I don't need the money because I'm doing great. So she started working with a guy by the name of K. And so they started doing this, like I said, since the early 80s. But eventually in 1989, they were arrested while smuggling a customer via Canada.
Oh.
So she was arrested and she was sentenced to 6 years. But some people say she talked to some authorities and she gave them some information. So she only got 4 months. I don't know if that's verified. Wow. It's kind of like, because they're thinking, again, this is an unassuming lady.
Yeah.
Who they're like, well, she's not like a crime boss. Like,
right. I mean, this tiny woman couldn't possibly have all of those skills.
Yeah.
Oh, just slap her on the wrist.
Yeah. So after 4 months, she gets out, but then she realizes I got to switch up my game. Like I gotta so she's like, I can't be using air anymore. So what about sea?
Yeah, but she used air for like 8 years very successfully. Shocking. Yeah. Okay.
So she's just like, okay, so I need to figure out another way. Yeah, this is not working. So she also needed, that a boat is a whole different thing. Like a cargo, that's a whole different thing. So you need a lot more like labor. Like you need a lot more help, physical labor. So she reached out through her connections, because obviously everyone knows her by this time and they know what she does, and like And this is not frowned upon in the industry and in the community for the most part, because it's like she's just helping people, right?
Okay, right.
Now, so she, like I said, so she's like, I gotta go by sea. I gotta figure this out. So how can I do that? So she turned to a local gang, a man who worked at a local gang, Chinese gang, and the gang was called Fukching, which Fukching translated to Fujianese gang. So they're the Fujianese gang.
Okay.
So, and she was
These are her
founded,
people.
yes, exactly. So, and this gang was founded by Ken Fei Wong, or Paul Wong, and Kim Tai Chan. Now, unfortunately, in '89, Wong had Chan killed.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
oh my. What? Why? Do we know?
So, some gang foolishness and fighting.
Okay. All right.
So, to get the heat off, to change their tactics, they're like, oh, let's start to smuggling, snakehead business. So, because again, everybody was kind of doing a version of this. It's just like how small and how big.
Right.
Like, you know, it's kind of like the mob. Like there's prostitution, there's drugs, there's gambling, there's all kinds of stuff wrapped in. You got to diversify, basically.
Listen, Sal and I just watched Big Trouble in Little China.
Yep.
Again, and you give me so many vibes.
Yeah.
That movie, by the way, is shockingly not as racist as one would expect.
I've been hesitant about watching it because I used to love that movie and I love Kirk Russell,
yeah.
but I'm gonna watch it again.
So. I think you can. I think you keep waiting for it. You're just like, obviously, this is the scene where. Oh no!
But I think I have to ask an actual Chinese person.
Probably do that first. But I will say,
Chinese American person.
Yeah, the Kurt Russell, admittedly plays the buffoon the entire time.
Yes, he's an idiot, which is why I loved it.
And everyone else is so much smarter than he is. So at the very least, it's not a white savior situation, even though you keep thinking it's about to be.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, dumbass, what did he do that for? Okay. The Chinese people will save his ass again. Obviously, don't take my very white word for it, but,
Yeah. You know what? I'll circle back to it because I mean,
considering every other movie from the '80s is horrific, you
just have to be like, yes. And sometimes you're surprised. Like sometimes it's actually more progressive than you think. But so they're infighting, and they're like, we gonna have to reorganize. So now the Fukching were connected to the American Association, which was basically. It was one of the main tongues. So the tongues is basically the mob, the Chinese mob.
I feel like I've heard of it. Yeah.
It's tongues is the name for the individual groups because they have different like the Bloods and the Crips. So the tongues are the different ones. So now the American Association basically controls all of them. So they all in agreement. It's kind of like in the Italian mob, the family. So they're all in agreement. This is this is the territory, and unless there's infighting or a civil war or whatever, right?
Right.
So they controlled all of the criminal activities emanating from the Fukienese province. So the crime came to stateside, like all the mob. It's the same thing, Italian mob. Like Russian mob, all of that. So
Jewish mob, don't forget.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So she got in. She started working with them, and the Fukching did things like they would take out CC cameras. They would do the collecting. So they would collect every week or however from the people who had been customers who were still paying off stuff. They would patrol the neighborhoods. They keep an eye on people trying to escape, because you would imagine people are like, well, I'm just going to go to Iowa and leave town.
I mean, that's what I would do.
But it's so interesting because on the one hand, if you're a recent immigrant and you don't speak English that well, you're like, this is great. I'm around my people. But on the other hand, it's kind of like a trap because you're trapped there. So,
I mean, it's a little bit of a jail situation, like serfdom-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you figure it's like indentured servitude, basically.
Yeah,
like,
that's
but
what
I'm going to pay it off.
That's literally what that is.
Yeah.
I mean.
So they worked with her and they helped her. Now, like I said, in one interview, the former gang member by the name of Big Head, he was active in Chinatown in the 80s through the 90s.
Okay.
Of Sister Ping, he said she was a very nice person. He's like, she was not a gangster, just very nice. She basically wanted to help her people from her village a lot. And again, he knew her because originally he collected from her when she had her restaurant on East Broadway, and she paid him protection money. But then later on, one of his boys that worked for him started liking her daughter. So it's two young people sniffing around each other. So that's how, and like I said, he said she was always so nice. So when she originally came to him, he turned her down because he's like, I don't need to get into this. He's like, why do you want to get into this? So she connected with Ake, who they got arrested back in 89.
Right.
But later on, I mean, they remained friends. I think he would advise her because he knew she was a businesswoman, and he said he liked her. Because she presented what she was doing as helping people.
I mean, to a degree,
I'm not saying she was, but she was also charging them $74,000.
Like, it's kind of like, I will teach you good exercises to make you better, and I genuinely want you to be better, and it's $5,000 an hour, right? So it's like, also you have to pay it, or bad things will happen. I don't know, like, how helpful that is.
Because I mean, make no mistake, if you were late or you couldn't pay, either you got a visit, your family member got a visit, or your family member back home got a visit.
Scheisse.
And or.
Yeah, okay. So, like, I don't know, again, like, how, like, are we helpful? Is that the word we're looking for?
I mean, that's why I thought this was such a fascinating story. So, and a little bit more of what I'm going to get into. So let's get back to the story. So Big Head said that she was like, I need to go by sea. So they went down to Florida and looked at a ship, and he was like, the ship was he's like, it was a mess. It was just like all rusted out. She's like, I'm going to buy that ship. And he's like, he's like, does it even work?
Right, exactly.
She's like, no, I'm gonna clean it up, but I can buy it outright. Because again, it's very lucrative. She's like, I can buy it outright. And that's basically what she did.
Okay.
So now this is how it worked when you were at the height of her snakehead business. So you would reach out, you would notify her contacts in, let's say, Fujian, right?
Okay,
and you want to go. So either you or your family members come up with like 10%, right?
Okay.
Like I said, so you get instructions to go to hold on. Yeah, you get instructions to go to a place, usually a train station, and then the train goes to another train, and then a plane, and then you get to Russia, and then you get on a boat, and the boat goes around. So I'm going to get into exactly what the route that the Golden Venture took. I'm going to get to that. But
can you even do this in the winter? I'm just thinking
they were doing it all because they're like, and also people are desperate, and also you have a lot of customers. So once you got to the States, though, she used her contacts to place the customers or the snakes into jobs. So various jobs in restaurants. Okay. These are not high paying jobs. So that's why it would take so long to pay off the debt.
You'd basically be working for her forever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like I said, most people, you would consider this enslavement, but a lot of people were grateful though for the opportunity.
Yeah. I guess it's like, maybe that is better, but is like that the American dream? Like, I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I was saying. What is the cost of the American dream, right?
Like honestly, what is American dream? Like, I don't know her. I don't.
I think there is
just a dream.
Well, I think we also forget, because we are Americans, that in a lot of societies, and I've even heard English people talk about this, that it's so difficult to go from one class to another in a lifetime. But in America, you can do that.
That is true. That is true. It's just really, really hard.
It's just not as easy or simple as people think it is, depending on your race, depending on your gender, depending on what state you live in.
So Fievel thought that there were no cats in America.
Oh, Fievel.
There are no cats in America. But there are cats in America. And, it just is what it is.
It is what it is. So
I used to do my Fievel voice, but I won't do that to you right now. I'm looking for my family. My Fievel. We're talking about An American Tale.
Yeah.
Tail. Let's see what they did there. Cute.
But yes,
go on. Sorry.
So basically they would come here and they would start working right away. Okay. Now, so business was good, right? She was charging this, but in 1990, George Bush Sr. offered legal status to those who lived in the U.S. at the time of the Tiananmen Square incident.
That's really nice of him. Wow.
Look it up. It was like a student rebellion, and then they literally mowed them down in tanks. I remember. So look it up.
Listen, this is why I say I always say it's not that you hate everything Republicans do. If they would do something that doesn't piss me off, then I would like it. This doesn't piss me off. Okay, here we are.
Yeah, I mean it's a very generous offer. It's also compassionate after what happened, because we were able to see some of these activities. Now,
I remember.
You would think this would have the opposite effect, right? Because basically he's saying he's opening up people who will be able to get legal status from China, right? So you think this would have the opposite effect on her business, but nope.
No, really?
It actually increased her business because now instead of just being we can get you to the States, came the promise of the possibility of a green card at the end of the journey.
Oh, and then they could threaten you and make you keep working for her, even though technically.
Well, I mean, because you're it's not only that, you can then raise your prices.
Oh, bitch. Okay.
And because of this, it also ramped up the snakehead industry across the board and Chinatowns throughout the country.
No kidding.
So snakehead business it hit a massive level after that.
What I realized is that because most people couldn't afford to get here on their own and set up shop and get a job.
Exactly. So it's sense. Like you're getting a high interest loan that's exorbitant, and it is exploitative, but it's also helpful. And when you're desperate, you're I'm going to take the chance. So now, unfortunately, this also had a chilling effect back on some places back in China. At the time, in one story, so many young men left one small school in the small village that the village became known as Widow's Village.
Oh my God.
Because now everyone's oh, I can get a green card. Let me go through the snakehead business. And it's but that's not true. But they don't know that. You're going to try, right?
Right.
So, like I said, it ramped up everything. So her voyage generally started in Beijing. So in Fujian, so you go to the train station in groups of 50 or 60 people.
Dang.
Then you take the train to Beijing.
Okay.
And then you go through Russia to Moscow.
Okay.
To an English port where the snakeheads were there, waiting to welcome you on the boat. They would serve food. It's kind of like a farmer's market. They were serving food and again, this is what you're paying for, right? So you know exactly where to go,
right.
It is said at the time that the prices went from about 45 to about 50 to 60,000 a person, which is about $100,000 in today's money, close to $100,000.
That's crazy.
So with these prices now, and then business, you have too many customers, Sister Ping really upgraded her life. So she went from driving a Tesla to a Bentley dripped in gold.
With the driver driving her and massaging her at the same time.
Yeah. She became rich.
Yeah.
And her reputation among the Chinese grew even more. But at the same time, cops were clueless. Because again, this woman,
tiny woman,
they're she also, because white people tend to ignore non-white people, and they're like, yeah, especially like, I will say this is where the stereotype of Asians being, especially Asian women being,
yes, demure,
like, demure and, not aggressive and like, and all the time she is a boss bitch. Okay, making money.
Okay,
$100,000 a head. Think about that.
I just like, what do you even do? I do have an answer to that, but like, that is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. So
you better put some of it away for bail. I'm just saying. Okay,
but basically, she went unnoticed. She went under the radar. And she even, possibly to launder some money, but maybe just to maintain a cover. She actually opened up legit businesses.
You gotta. That's too much money.
Yeah.
I watched Breaking Bad. I know what you have to do. Okay, laundromat. Oh no, car wash.
Car wash. So they wash the money, get it.
I get it. I see what they did there.
She opened up a clothing store, a real estate company, and a travel agency, among even like buying property throughout the world, all kinds of stuff. So yeah. Now, even though business was going well, the infighting in the Fuqing gang, just like all gangs, it just imploded.
Yeah.
And they started infighting, so she actually lost her security.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is around the time where she needed it because the Golden Venture is making another voyage. So by the time she, she was set sailing and trying to do, she needed help and she just lost it. But, it's like business is business. Like, it's kind of like the show will go on. So,
yeah.
So the ship, the Golden Venture, like I said, the people got on in Fujian, then they went through Russia, and then they went to an English port. So at the port in Singapore, they would then go to, this ship went from Singapore to Bangkok to Mombasa in Kenya to Cape Town in South Africa to Brazil, Central America, and finally to North America, to the United States.
That'll take like 25 years. That's the longest boat ride ever.
It took 120 days, which is twice the amount of time that it took the Pilgrims.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And that is why, and it was an old ship, so that is why it ran ground in Queens, Far Rockaway, Queens. So now we're back to the beginning of the story, right?
Right. Okay.
So all hell breaks loose. And like I said, the guy was like, see, what had happened was, it's Sister Ping. It's all Sister Ping. Now people are like, there were other Big Head. According to Big Head, there weren't just Sister Ping's people on this ship. There were other people's. She only had like 10 or 15 customers. This is according to Big Head.
Okay.
But they were all, smuggling. So,
right.
So around this time, they bring her in for questioning, and she leaves. She escapes.
What? She just leaves?
She just leaves.
Oh my God. Where'd she go?
She went back to her small village in Fujian.
Holy shit.
And began business from that end.
Damn, girl. She took her $9 billion in her pocket and walked away. Okay.
Again, I think they underestimate her. They're like, oh, it's just this unassuming Chinese woman. So she left. They didn't think she had the cojones. So in 1994, she was invited to Beijing along with other overseas notables of Fujianese descent to celebrate an anniversary celebration of the Communist Party.
Okay.
While there, she was arrested.
Yeah, that sounds like a trap. Okay.
But when she arrived, according to police and friends, she paid the bribes and she was able to escape again.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So she basically just went back to her village and just like, I'm chilling, but I'm going to continue business. And she did continue business. In fact, in 1998, another ship she was running capsized off the coast of Guatemala, and it killed 14 people on board.
That's so sad.
Now, you want to know how much they say she made about this time?
Yes, I do.
So they estimate, the FBI and the NSA, hold on, let me see. They estimate that she made, hold hold on. And
You're looking it up. You're doing the math.
Yeah, I meant to do it earlier. Okay, so she made $40 million.
What the fuck?
In 1998. That's almost $75 million in today's money.
Jesus. I just want 1 million. Why is that so hard? God. It's not fair.
So, of course, they attempted to capture her. They spent about 5 years trying to apprehend her. But again, she was in the mainland of China. It was hard to, get into China. It's like,
right.
They're like, nah. And they're like, China didn't have an extradition agreement with the United States. So they're like, no.
No, she's like, what you gonna do?
But in 2000, Interpol searched the passengers list for a flight from Hong Kong to New York, and they found her son's name on it.
Oh, shit.
So more than 40 agents from Hong Kong waited at the airport, and they realized it was her. So they apprehended her at the airport. She was fingerprinted and arrested. At the time, she was carrying 3 different passports, including a fake Belize one with her photo, but in the name of Lily Xing.
Okay.
And so this is a straight up like Jason Bourne, like this is Sister Ping is gangsta. So she fought extradition, but she was eventually sent back because, of course, she could hire the best lawyers. She was eventually sent back to New York in 2003 and held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So now, after a trial jury in the United States, so she went to trial in 2005. She was convicted on 3 separate counts, including 1 count of conspiring to commit illegal human smuggling, hostage taking, money laundering, and trafficking and ransom proceeds. And she was sentenced to 35 years in prison.
I mean, she did do all of that. So, I mean, I would say alleged, but she definitely was convicted.
Now, do you want to hear from Sister Ping?
I do. Yes.
So in a 2013 interview, so this is what, 8 years after? Yeah, about 8 years after she was convicted. She said in an interview, quote, "Being locked up for over 10 years allowed me to think about my previous life. My heart calmed down and I started to feel that jail was the safest place for me. I keep telling myself not to think much about the future and live life by the moment," end quote.
Yeah.
Then she goes on to say, "I cannot believe they jailed me for 35 years. 35 years. In a way, I was killed by the FBI agents and the tainted witnesses." So, I mean, she's like, I did this, but 35 years? And bitches turn snitches. That's what basically she's saying.
Okay. So, she started a feudal system in which people were essentially slaves to her. I mean, 35 years sounds not so bad. This is my own personal opinion. We're just saying.
Well, it's so interesting. So I'm gonna get to that in just a second. So she died on April 24th, 2014 in prison from cancer. But she was surrounded by her family at the Federal Medical Center in Carswell, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Now, when she was first arrested and, it was all in the papers because everybody, again, this ship ran aground in Queens.
Right.
So the opinions ran basically along what you would expect, cultural lines. So, the U.S. press was like this, the smuggler, terrible conditions, this
human trafficking,
this human trafficker, In Chinatown, many of the Chinese championed her as a hero.
Oh. And
many of them said that she saved whole generations of people by getting them out of poverty.
You know what? I just think she overcharged them. I think that's my biggest beef with the whole situation, honestly. Like I can see both points of view for sure, but especially just charge less, make your money.
But I will say, knowing crime, I don't know it that well, but she can't charge too little because then that's a threat to the other snakeheads. But it's exploitative, certainly. It's exploitative.
It's definitely exploitative.
But I do see their point. Like, I do see their, they actually praised her as an immigration hero. And they often spoke kind words about her. They said that she gave to charity. According to reports after she died, thousands of people attended her funeral procession along East Broadway on May 23rd of 2014 as it proceeded to the Beaufouque Funeral Home on Canal Street. Her body was laid to rest at the Conesco Cemetery in Valhalla, New York. So they came out to support her because, again, they feel like foreigners in a strange land, and she was at least looking out for them. Now, again, let's not gloss over if you were late or you couldn't pay. You know what I'd want to know? I'd want to know, how long did it take the average person to pay off the debt?
And what were the threats? Like, I would want to know, like, if you were late, did a family member die because you were late? Or did they just say, hey, you have another, or hey, well, like, how nice were they?
Or did they garnish your wages and then house you in like a warehouse to live? So they garnish all of your wages. I mean, but $74,000, if you're making minimum wage, what is that? That's going to take you 4 or 5 years, right?
That's more than 4 or 5 years. If you're making minimum wage, that's taking 10 years.
Because you got to eat.
15 years. You got to eat. You've got to live. Your kid needs new shoes.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're housed upstairs, right? So with her connections, if she knows people who are housing these people, like, they're basically sleeping in one room, and there's 1 or 2 bathrooms, and you do that, because I would imagine people be like, okay, it's worth it, so I'll do this for 3 or 4 years, right? Is that what's happening? Or is it like you can go and find your apartment and then we just come and break your arm? Like, is that what's happening?
Right.
Like,
and that's my thing. And I think it does make a difference, because I understand that the world is muddy and we live in the world of gray areas. And sometimes you are saving people from horrors by bringing them to a world that's less horrible and maybe some hope. However, you and I know that there are ways to have grace and kindness within this world. And was there grace and was there kindness? Like, maybe.
And it sounds like it was. I think that if she or her enforcers got rough, I think it seems like the people understood, like, well, you got to pay up, motherfucker. Like,
right.
But for the most part, they were grateful for the opportunity at a better life, right? However,
I mean, it sounds like
dangerous.
Like, yeah, that, like, I mean, what happened tells us that overall, she was very helpful, and not horribly cruel. Like,
I think it might be in comparison, because I would imagine, like, what we're seeing, what's going on now with, immigration and, know, how people are being treated in these detention centers. Like, I would imagine that, like, of the snakeheads who were operating, she probably was the kindest one. And perhaps you didn't have to worry about her men raping you, or I don't know if that's true or not, but like, her people, like, she's going to make sure you're taken care of, and she's not into like unnecessary force or humiliation, or, you know what I mean? Like, threats. It could be that. And that's why they say, oh, she was a nice lady, because it's in comparison with other snakeheads.
That is a very good point as well. Yay.
Yeah. Like, now, since her death, smuggling and human trafficking, I mean, that's basically what we call it nowadays. It hasn't slowed down. It is a big business.
It's problematic.
All over the world. The drug cartels don't really run it, like, but oftentimes they'll take a commission for safe travel, like through South America, Central America. Basically, human trafficking is very, very lucrative, even for the women who get into it. Now, it's so popular, even during this time and still now, that there's another woman by the name of Jen Ping Chen, who also went by the moniker of Sister Ping, who was operating in the 1990s in the UK.
Oh my God. Okay.
They estimated that British Sister Ping smuggled about 250,000 Chinese.
Holy shit.
Into Europe.
Jesus. That's a lot of people.
That is a lot of people. It also shows you the money. Obviously, we know, and usually when I think of traffic, I think of, sexual trafficking, but labor trafficking is also huge as well.
Yeah, I guess.
But I just thought she was just a fascinating, Sister Ping was a fascinating character, because it's like, is she notorious because she, obviously she was convicted and she did something illegal?
Yeah.
Is she notorious because she was misunderstood by the mainstream American media because she was a Chinese woman, a Chinese immigrant?
Right. You know what my guess is? My guess is she was, it's not great. The situation's not great, but she was better than many others. And if you felt like you can't continue here, you're in a very dangerous, impoverished way, she was the best one to go through.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably the case. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah. And she's like, I might as well get paid while I'm doing it, because she made $75 million.
That's fucking crazy. Oh my God.
That, I was like, I'm in the wrong business.
You know what I'm saying? I keep paying my taxes and,
I don't want to go to jail, so I'm paying my taxes. But
pay all my bills. You know what I mean? I have jobs that are legal. I mean, I don't know if this is working for me, Lavetta, honestly.
No, and that's my thing. We talk about the American dream. I just always remember that I don't know if it's based on fact, but I just thought it was a great scene in the Andrew Cunanan story that Ryan Murphy did, where his father's a Filipino man.
Yeah.
And he got into he's like, I want to get into trading, in the 1980s. And he's married to this white lady. He has these biracial kids. And, he's like the American dream. And according to him, he got this job at this brokerage firm and he's making all this money. And it turns out it was all a scam. He wasn't making all this money. And then he finally says, the actor who plays him is so great. He says to his sons, the American dream is a lie. It's not possible to just come and work hard. You have to be lucky. You have to be connected. And is this just a woman who came here and realized that working hard is not enough and was like, I'm going to have to figure out how to skip the line?
Do you know when the American dream can work? When our country allows for programs that help poor people. Mm-hmm. That is my father went to a very good university that was free for New York City residents. If it was not 100% free, he couldn't have gone to it.
He couldn't have gone to it. And that is the thing. That is what we talk about with social programs. You don't have to be worth $75 million to send your kids to the best schools. You can come and work, and then you can get a job at, Zara, you can get a job at and you can make a livable wage, you and your husband. Yeah. And together you can make, a solidly middle class income. Yeah.
And if you want a further education, maybe you can go, maybe there are some community colleges that don't cost so much money.
A lot of money. Right. And you can send
educational resources.
And you can send your kids to public schools that are properly funded, and they can get a good education. And that is what we are striving for. But there's one faction, not to get too political, that doesn't want that. It's just a handout. It's just a handout.
What is there? I thought we all were in agreement. I don't understand.
Girl, don't even get me started. Anyway, that is Sister Ping. And that wraps up.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, and that, she was amazing. She really was an amazing episode. And thank you guys for joining us. That wraps it up for this episode of Notorious Women Podcast. As always, what do I say? Remember to follow us on all the things.
All the things.
all the things. Also, you can if you'd like to support us financially, so we don't have to do what Sister Ping did.
Thank you.
You can help us out with some cash. You can do that by going to patreon.com/notoriouswomen. That's patreon.com/notoriouswomen. You can also, if you don't have a little moolah, you can also give us a 5-star rating.
Yeah, that's
in the
free.
App Store. That's free. You can follow us. Also, we are, by the time this comes out, we should have our YouTube channel that's going to be up. Give us a little time. We're still uploading all the episodes, but you can go there and subscribe. That will really help us out a lot. And also, like, leave a message. Tell us how you like these episodes or who you'd like us to cover. You know, like, give us some suggestions. We so appreciate you guys listening to us and allowing us to do this. Cause I mean, I'm learning stuff. I had never heard of this woman. Like, dang,
I didn't know any of what you said. Like,
me either.
All of that was like new information. It was amazing.
It was so great. So you guys are helping us to become smarter and me not to, feel like I'm just getting dumber as the years go on. But anyway.
Our brain cells are growing, not shrinking. Okay.
Exactly. And Miriam, how else can they find a Notorious Women podcast?
So glad you asked me that question. Our email is notoriouswmpod@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your thoughts, anything. And our Instagram is the easiest thing on the planet. It is Notorious Women Podcast. Come, join, follow, enjoy. I have a good time there. You should too.
Yeah,
I do.
Great.
I really
She's
do.
killing it. She's killing it, guys. Go ahead and show Miriam some love because she is single-handedly responsible for how good it is. So
really, thank you very much.
No, it's true. It's true. You are killing it, and I so appreciate you doing that. And we appreciate you guys, and
Yes,
we will
do.
see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.